Hi, I'm Maggie. Thank you for stopping by Crafts the Charm today. I'm so glad you're here. And today I want to make some coastal style decorative orbs. In the past, I've made monkey's fists knots and faux glass fishing buoys, and I'll include a link to that video here. But today I want to do something a little different. So I'm going to start with a couple of these styrofoam balls. They're 2.4 inches, and I'm also going to use a wiffle ball from the Dollar Tree. And I want to stick a bamboo skewer in these and then stick them in this piece of foam that I have here to facilitate drying. So with the wiffle ball, I'm going to put masking tape over one of the holes to make it easier to stick the bamboo skewer in. I'm going to recommend that you cover all of the holes with masking tape. I ended up doing that a little bit later. It would have been much easier if I'd done it now. So the first thing I'm going to do with all of these is put a layer of paper mache over them to give them a little bit more friction and make it easier to glue things to them. So I'm going to just mix up some white glue, school glue, PVA glue, with a little bit of water, and I'm using bathroom tissue, and 1 ply of the tissue is perfect. So first I just paint a little bit of the glue onto the ball, and then I just sort of pat the ply of bathroom tissue over that, and then I paint glue over that. And for the foam balls, and it's possible you don't need to do this for the foam balls, but I felt like it would give me a little bit of texture that I could glue to. I just did 1 layer. For the wiffle ball, I did 1 layer and realized then that I should have put the masking tape over all of the holes. So then once that had dried, I did basically 2 more layers, but I taped over all the holes just to make it a little bit easier. Now I'm going to start with the wiffle ball. I wanted to cover this one with starfish, and originally I was going to use my Cricut and cut starfish shapes out of craft foam, and then I thought that's a pretty simple shape, I should be able to cut it just with scissors. And I didn't have any white craft foam, and I did have this white vinyl floor sample, which I had gotten last year at Home Depot. So I decided to use this. You could absolutely use craft foam for this. I've done this before with craft foam. What I liked about this floor sample is it had a little bit of texture to it. So I would actually recommend using a piece of craft foam, but then poke some texture into it with something sharp like a pencil or maybe one of the bamboo skewers. Give it a little bit of texture because starfish have some texture. So I have this starfish from the Dollar Tree. It's resin, and I'm tracing around it. It's a little bit bigger than I want. So I'm then just going to cut the shape a little bit smaller than that. And I can fit 3 of those around the ball, but I wanted it to be completely covered. So I cut another one out and then cut it into pieces because the problem is just basically where do the legs go. And if I just move the legs a little bit, I can get 2 more to fit on here. So once this was cut into 2 pieces, I just sort of held it over the ball, the 2 pieces, until I could get them to fit into one of those places, and then I traced around that, cut that out, and glued it on. And with the other one, I just cut the 2 pieces to fit because I didn't want to waste that, and glued it on. And hot glue works perfectly for gluing this or regular craft foam to this decoupaged ball. Now to paint this, I'm going to use Folk Art Home Decor Chalk Paint in Cascade. This is one of my favorite colors. And to start, I just covered the entire ball and the starfish with the Cascade. Once that had dried, I mixed a little bit of white paint into the Cascade, and I'm just using Apple Barrel acrylic white paint. Mixed that in, and then brushed it over the entire thing. So I wanted a mix of colors here. And the great thing about that paper mache is it gives you some texture on the ball that you can pick up when you do dry brushing over it. I then put a little bit more white on the starfish, just a straight white, And I will come back to putting white on the starfish, but I end up doing something a little bit different with the starfish first. So you could skip this step right now if you're following along. I then took some apple barrel burnt umber and I brushed that over all of the blue parts, so the textury parts of the ball, not the starfish. And then I took the burnt umber and a fine tipped brush and I went around the edges of the starfish. So they're dimensional, they're standing up from the ball. So I went along the edges, along the sides, just around, sort of traced around at the bottom of the ball and traced around on the edges of the starfish. And then I took the blue again and brushed over the starfish, kind of lightly, but making sure I brushed over that burnt umber so that I didn't have such a stark edge on each of the starfish. And in the end, I went back in and did do just a little bit more white over that, but instead of using the apple barrel white, I used this Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in sheepskin, which is just a little bit of a warmer white. Now for the first styrofoam ball, I'm going to wrap it with this macrame cord, which I got at the Dollar Tree, but you can get macrame cord pretty much anywhere, certainly Amazon. And what I'm going to do is make a very small coil with the end of this, put some hot glue on my styrofoam ball, that's going to be the top, and then press the coil into the hot glue. And then I'm just going to continue to coil the macrame cord all the way around the ball. And I'm going to hot glue it down entirely. So I'll just put down a bead of hot glue around the cord that's already there, and then press the cord into it. And again, just go all the way around the ball. When I get to the end, I will just trim it so that it fits perfectly in itself in a little coil at the other end. Now, this time of year, the Dollar Tree sometimes has these fun jute twines. I'm going to use one that's just a brown and a white, but you can see they also have other fun colors like a blue and a brown. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the macrame cotton, but I'm going to stop about a third of the way up. So I think I did about 15 wraps. And then I did the other end. Now, I would recommend poking a bamboo skewer all the way through the styrofoam ball so you know where the ends are, the opposite poles, because I don't think I got that opposite pole exact when I started the other coil. So once I had done that, and I came in another 15 for the other end, I used just a regular brown jute twine and wrapped the middle of that. But it wasn't perfect because I hadn't gotten my ends perfect, so I did have to put in like a little bit of extra in one spot to fill in the middle. And I really like the way that looks. In retrospect, I think I would leave it like that. And in fact, before I take my staging pictures, which I haven't taken yet, I might try to remove what I did next. So what I did next was I took the macrame cotton and I just wrapped it around the seams where the other two cords meet, and I put a piece in the middle. But I don't like that as much as the way it looked originally without the macrame cord. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Now I'm going to show you my fail next before I show you my final ball, which I think came out very well. But for my fail, I have this not quite 2-inch styrofoam ball, and I have an old bead necklace, just plastic beads. They happen to be white. And what I decided to do was make something that looks sort of like, I don't know, like a conch shell. So do a spiral in the beads all the way around this foam ball. And the best way to do that seemed to be to sort of melt a hole in the ball with my hot glue gun, put a little hot glue in there, and then press a bead into that. And again, I just went around in a spiral pattern. When I got to the other end, I drew out the end of my spiral with a pencil just to help me space the beads. And I thought this looked pretty cool, although I'll say it does resemble a dryer ball. But I really liked the way it looked white, and I wish I'd left it like that because, I did put some spackle in the little bead holes, just so you wouldn't be able to see any that were still visible. The beads are depressed about halfway into the styrofoam. Oh, and they don't come out easily. I wanted to move one and I had trouble prying it out, so they're stuck in really well. I was worried they wouldn't be. But, I tried to paint it. So I painted it white, and I thought it would look basically the same as it does unpainted, but it just doesn't. It just did not look good. And I wanted to paint it to look sort of like a shell, but it looked so bad that what I decided to do ultimately was just paint it to basically match the starfish ball, so that at least they would coordinate with each other. So I painted it entirely in burnt umber, and then I dry brushed the cascade over that, the blue. And then I did dry brush just a little bit of the white too, the sheepskin over that. But I don't think this looks like something from under the sea, some sort of meteorite piece at best. Maybe it'll show up again at Halloween, but tell me how I could have fixed this. I'm thinking now I wish I'd just left it alone as styrofoam. I think it would have looked much better, but I don't think I can get the paint off of it. So this is what I've got. Now, the final orb, though, I think is really cool, really easy. So what I have here are strips of old blue jeans. And this is from when I made a table runner last year out of blue jeans, which I really do like that table runner. So I had cut blue jeans into strips that are 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch wide. And what I'm going to do is wrap these around one of those wiffle balls. I've done more than one of these, so I also did some around some styrofoam balls as well. And you do not need anything to glue this down or hold this down. So what I'm going to do is hold it at one end, so hold one end of the jeans at one end of the ball and just wrap all the way around the ball. And once I reach the top, the start, then I'm just going to overlap but move it to one side. So let's say I move it to the right a little bit and overlap. Once I reach the bottom, I'm going to cross over. So now I'm overlapping on the other side, the left. And then once I reach the top, again, I'm going to cross over and overlap on the right. And I'll continue that until I'm out of jeans, and then I'll just tuck the end under and get another strip to work with. Now, when I was playing around with this, I did do one ball where I always started at the same place. So I always started at what we'll call the top. And you can do that, and all of your strips are basically going the same way. But you end up with something that's more football shaped because you're building in a lot of bulk at the top and the bottom. So what I thought would look better is if I just started in basically random locations all over the ball. And I really tried to randomize the color of jeans that I used too. So just start in another location and do the same thing. Wrap around and then overlap and go to one side. Switch sides at the opposite end and just keep doing that until you're out of jeans, and then tuck it under itself and start in a new random location. And I just love the way this looks. All of the different colors of jeans and widths of jeans wrapped in random ways around the ball. I thought that was really cool, really easy, and again, you don't need to fasten it in any way except to tuck it under itself, and it stays together really well. So I made several of those. So here are the final coastal decorative orbs. I would love to know what you think. If you have a favorite, if you made something like this before, please tell me in the comments. Also, tell me how to fix my dryer ball one. I would love to know your thoughts on that. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy this sort of content, please subscribe to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.